Hi everybody, it's Wednesday. As feminist Disney lovers involved in Disney discourse, Sarah and I have heard a lot of things about Disney movies, especially the princess movies. Some of those things we have addressed on this channel before, but never about Cinderella, who just happens to be one of my favorite Disney princesses. I can remember a time in my life when I regarded Cinderella the same way a lot of people do, as an outdated princess with anti-feminist traits because the 1950 movie was old or something. But now, after having watched that movie a few times over the last couple of years, as well as a few other versions of Cinderella that I'll be talking about today, I've realized that Cinderella is the most active out of the original three Disney princesses. Like I said earlier, people say things. Things like, Belle has Stockholm Syndrome and Ariel only did it for the dick. Both of those simplify the movies to the point of missing the true message as well as, what actually happens in those movies. People also say plenty about Walt's original three princesses. That they just wait around to be saved, that they play no real part in their own destinies, and especially with Cinderella, that she could have changed her situation at any time by leaving. Does she wait? How active is she in her own story? Could she have really left? Why didn't she leave if it was even a possibility? And could her story be viewed separately from Snow White and Sleeping Beauty as a feminist Disney movie? In all of the versions of Cinderella that I'm going to be talking about today, the Cinderella character is not only loyal to a family that is virtually non-existent, but also a victim of domestic abuse. I mean, the whole point of each of these retellings is that kindness and forgiveness will always make you a better person than cruelty and abuse of power over other people. Some versions are more subtle about this than others, but it's always Cinderella who ends up with happiness, love, money, which she almost never really seems to care about, and recognition, which her stepmother is almost always out to get first. Disney in the 1950s was by no means a perfect or feminist company, but Cinderella is not a woman waiting to be saved like so many think. She's a slave in her own home doing chores enough for 4 or 5 people by herself. Some magical force in the universe recognizes this, and then it decides that she deserves a reward, and in steps her fairy godmother. She gets the night off to go to a party and just happens to leave after hanging out with some hot dude that she doesn't even realize is the prince. At the end of the day, it's her mice friends that save her. They're the ones that get the key to her locked bedroom door so she can try on the slipper so she can get her well-deserved reward, which just happens to come in the form of a prince and stability, and I'm assuming based on the two midquels, compassion and respect. This all comes to her at her lowest point, and after having everything taken from her, she is still true to herself. And that's how fairy tales often work. The heroes and the heroines are rewarded for continuing to be heroes and heroines despite the trials and tribulations they have to go through. But moving on to 1997 Cinderella, which is the most colorful production I've ever seen. And it's a perfect example of representing diversity without talking about race. The cast alone is enough for me to consider this movie intersectional, at least from a production standpoint. I mean, the White King is married to the Black Queen, and somehow they have a Filipino son, but it has nothing to do with the line of succession, there's no talk of adoption, nothing. No one in their world questions how Bernadette Peters has one white daughter and one black daughter, and it just doesn't matter to them. And all we as audience members really need to concern ourselves with is Cindy, Prince Topher, and how their journeys converge. They're both certainly more fleshed out than their 1950s counterparts, but I think that only adds to how intersectional their story is. They find solace and freedom in each other, and I don't think that is necessarily a bad thing on its own. They're not looking to fix one another or force change on the other. They want to be the peaceful, respectful grounding point for each other. He just happens to be a prince, which brings Cindy out of her abusive home and into a life that she deserves. 20th Century Fox's Ever After is something else altogether. It is not only one of my favorite movies ever, it is also one of Drew Barrymore's favorite movies ever. Drew Barrymore plays the Cindy character, Angelica Houston plays her evil stepmother, and Patrick Godfrey plays Leonardo da Vinci as the fairy godmother. I'm not kidding, this is a real thing that exists, and I love it. In my favorite scene, Danielle, played by Barrymore, saves Prince Henry from a group of bandits when they allow her to take anything that she can carry. Angelica Houston's Romilda is a terrible person. She and Cate Blanchett kind of sit on a shelf together of especially cruel stepmothers to Cinderella. She's She sells Danielle to their creepy landlord, played by Richard O'Brien, because she needs money, she hates Danielle, and he's in love with Danielle. Danielle's not even saved by Henry. He is gallant and competent as a prince, but Danielle saves herself. The landlord makes some creepy advances on her, and she cuts him. Henry only shows up to apologize to Danielle for hurting her previously and propose, and the movie closes by restating that compassion and kindness always win out. One of the two stepsisters turns out to be an empathetic ally and then is spared at court when her mother and her sister are forced to do hard labor. The 2015 Disney live-action Cinderella does some similar things, but I do admit that it's prettier to look at than it is deep. It might be hot garbage, but it's my hot garbage. There's a conversation between Ella and an unnamed friend that never shows up again in the movie. Yes, this movie has its faults, but I don't think this conversation is one of them. This friend asks Cinderella why she doesn't leave now that her father is gone, and her response is simply that this house is home to her. It belonged to her parents, it's where their love thrived, and it's the only home she's ever known. She has no money of her own, and I'm assuming no way to get a job or even an apprenticeship. Cinderella may not always want adventure in the great wide somewhere. Not every princess can want that. She may not be ambitious or artistically inclined or free-spirited. She's not the aggressive, headstrong feminist character we all loved in the 90s. But she's also not demure. Okay, so the 2015 Cinderella might be, but whatever. And she's not waiting to be saved. Not all victims are waiting to be saved, and she is 100% of the time a victim. She makes the best of her situation for herself, and in doing so is rewarded. She's a dreamer, so she dreams of better days. This is not always the case for victims of abuse. It's just one example told hundreds of thousands of times, because part of the hopefulness of Cindy's story is that it can happen. And that, for me, is so infinitely important. I am very protective of Cinderella and her story, and I'm tired of hearing from people that don't watch Cinderella that it is not what it clearly is. Sure, none of these versions of the story are 100% perfect, and not everybody is going to view the story the way that I do, but I think that it deserves more credit than it gets. You should check out all of the versions of Cinderella that I talked about because they're all really, really good. Walt's favorite piece of animation was the transformation scene in Cinderella, so that's super important. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked it, please give it a thumbs up. In the comments below, let me know what your favorite version of Cinderella is. I realized that I did not talk about Ella Enchanted when I very much could have. I'm sorry. Also, let me know how you feel protective of other Disney princesses when people say things like this about them. There's plenty of that on this channel. If you're not already subscribed to The Princess and the Scrivener, please do so down below, especially if you would like to see more videos on Disney, intersectional feminism, pop culture critiques, and more. Sarah will see you next week. This postcard's from Sarah. It's adorable. Look at Cindy and her little tea party hat. Oh, it's so cute. I love this postcard. Remember when the Cheetah Girls sang that song about I don't want to be like Cinderella, sitting in a dark, cold, dusty cellar waiting for somebody to come and set me free? You know, at 23, I realized that they chose the wrong princess for that analogy.